Hi, everyone. It is a real pleasure and honor to be here in this virtual space with you this evening. Thank you, Kat, Lauren, and everyone else involved in planning this amazing series and providing so many important resources that we can use beyond this online world. I love the title of this session, Revolutionary Resilience, Creating a Different Future, because it's really ripe for discussion. What's revolutionary resilience in this era that we're living in? What needs to be different about the future than the trajectory that we're on right now? What does different mean? What does the future even exist? So I want to begin tonight by sharing with you a little bit about my personal journey over the past 2 months, because it would feel disingenuous at this point not to. And in any public spiel that I give, I want to leave the door cracked open for realness. I think this is a piece of revolutionary resilience, breaking down personal barriers and deeply engaging with each other and our surroundings. I also want to preface this by saying that I believe that we all have our personal journeys. And so I'm by no means recommending my process for anyone else's journey, but maybe it's a piece of the puzzle. We all have these pieces of the puzzle to bring together to be able to see the bigger picture. I also think that it's important to name how and why we come to some of the conclusions that we come to. So at the beginning of March, it struck me that COVID-19 wasn't just fear-mongering and that it was going to be a pivotal, monumental period of our lives. In my role as a community organizer and climate activist, it felt clear that mutual aid was going to play a critical role and that this would be a very important dominant story. So I helped several communities get grassroots mutual aid groups organized with the goal of community members providing each other with what they need. So I dropped most of my other work at that point to jump full on COVID, helping coordinate volunteers and all sorts of different groups at the state level and the regional level and the local level and hyper local levels, while also personally trying to figure out how to be with others within the home and maintain relationships with loved ones. And a lot of us have been going through like some major growing pains and adjustment pains within this. And I got myself super busy and I put myself into sort of an emergency response role, taking hotline calls and not getting much sleep while being pretty isolated and having a hard time getting food myself. And I was simultaneously trying to weave the threads of pandemic through the wider crises, the climate crisis, the immigration crisis, and to envision what all of this could mean together. So after about 5 weeks of that and like full on intensity, I completely, utterly burned myself out. I've been working intensively on leading some form of environmental or climate activism for the past like 17 years and haven't ever really taken a step back or like taken a break. And I didn't see the pandemic coming. And it really pushed beyond my limits, cruised right through all of my limits. So a few weeks ago, I made a decision to actually step away from all of this work almost entirely, to rest and eat, to relearn how to simply exist, to re-envision my work and my roles and all of this climate justice organizing that we've been working so hard at. Because what was true a few months ago may not be true anymore. And the world is really different now than it was a few months ago. And so I felt like it was important to actually create space in my own world to give the proper time to re-envisioning, because I think it's really challenging for me, at least, to carry on full on with the same work while trying to re-envision. So after burning out and really looking at nihilism squarely in the eyes, I kept asking the question, what still matters? looking for the inner and the outer answers. What I found really sitting with that question is that for myself in this world, I discovered that curiosity and awe of the absolute magnificence of the world are like at the core, at my core, even in a place grappling with nihilism. Those pieces matter. Inner sovereignty matters. How we choose to exist matters. Reverence for this world matters. And in the outer world, what matters? I have to laugh because after feeling really lost, what I came back around to is this, this work that we're doing, moving from an extractive economy to one that's regenerative. This is the just transition. Relationships matter. Relocalization and recentering our mutual humanness in connection with the land that we live on matters. So what matters is this work, but a little bit differently than we've been doing it, I think, I suspect. Many of us are here tonight because we believe in the importance of local food systems and building community resilience. These are two key areas where I genuinely feel hope. I genuinely believe that big shifts are possible in these spaces and imminent, these shifts at the regional and local levels. So revolutionary resilience, and I believe synonymously climate work means going beyond, launching into newness, while sustainability is maintaining the same. What are we trying to sustain? The systems that perpetuate racism, sexism, classism, xenophobia, incentivize unchecked power and greed and destruction of the environment, our non-human world that's our home and our life force. No, we can't sustain those things. We have to launch into newness. Climate work, as we know, it's not just environmental, not by a long shot. It's societal change work. It's change within us to act differently, perhaps more boldly, and often more gently. It's unraveling dominant society. We spend so much time and energy worrying about barriers, trying to get money to make things happen, using technological tools to help us plan and keep track of things, when we know deep within us what we actually need to do. Could we maybe put the energy spent on those pieces, worrying about barriers and those monetary perceived barriers, into doing, making, repairing, restoring, reconnecting, planting the riparian buffers, growing and storing enough food and distributing it well enough to feed everyone in our communities as a collective effort, making sure everyone has a home, tending the soil, creating welcoming communities, making land accessible for everyone. We need to think creatively and differently, and maybe place some of our energy elsewhere and like really into that doing, and shed some of the bureaucracy that comes along with all of that just by doing. The pandemic blindingly highlights how people are disproportionately impacted. Many of these groups of people are also disproportionately impacted by climate change. People of color, indigenous people, some religious groups, lower income folks, traditionally marginalized populations. What we're also seeing is just how deeply the economy and the government are failing to serve these people, failing to serve most of us. The economy and governmental systems are these two intricately intertwined components that make it much harder to make the societal changes necessarily to effectively manage the climate crisis and all of these other crises. They are the barriers. And what we've seen as human activities have quieted down during the pandemic is cleaner skies, cleaner water, wildlife returning to places. Our lifestyles have become much closer to home. We see that rapid individual change is possible, but our emissions are only down by about 5%. How could this be? This so clearly illuminates that it's not us. It is the wider systems. It's the economic drive. It is the government pushing it into high gear. And I think it can be really challenging to not get stuck in a place of disempowerment and feeling like we don't matter within that. So what do we do about that? I think we move toward simply not needing them. The most revolutionary thing we can do is simply not need the government and the economy. We've created so much complexity around business models that it steals the glimmer of actually creating. Clinging to our current large-scale models or large-scale systems prevents us from being able to step into something new. This means creating other systems that actually prioritize supporting each other to the extent that we don't need the capitalist economy or current governmental systems and moving toward non-monetary systems. That's revolutionary resilience, or one form of it, and that's my dream. There are countless reasons why stepping away from the economy and current government are challenging for folks. And I'm especially looking at farmers here because I understand some of the complexities at play, but what I want to encourage is for all of us to be simultaneously creating different modes of exchange beyond the monetary system. We need to figure out how to support each other in our communities beyond money. It's exchange. It has deeper value than money. So what would it take for you personally to step into new systems? I encourage you to ponder that. What would it take for you to step into new systems and shed those old systems in practical ways and philosophical ways and any other ways? This is to me the message of sovereignty, inner and outer sovereignty. The ability to choose and the ability to create a different future. I want to give a nod and express gratitude to Sherry Mitchell, a completely outstanding Indigenous Penobscot leader. When this series was planned, we were going to be co-presenters this evening, but with the way that things have evolved, she wasn't able to make it for the webinar. But I just want to acknowledge her. Her book, Sacred Instructions, influenced my thinking on sovereignty a lot. So whether or not you're familiar with Sherry, I suggest tuning into her work, particularly during the pandemic. She's had some really fabulous webinars and I think is a real guiding star during this time. So now now is the time. I'd like to show a short video. Lauren, could you help set that up? Some of the questions this video poses are really spot on and good food for thought for our conversation, which will come shortly after this video. So pay attention to some of the big questions here that it's asking.
Yeah, Mindy, I have it set up on my side, but I also just want to let everyone know that we do not own the rights of this video. It was posted on YouTube. It's from the Global Wildlife Conservation, and we will post the links to it in the chat, just so everyone knows.
Dear humankind, thank you for being a superhost. I never imagined I'd have the opportunity to jump to a species as abundant as you. Most viruses only get to know their original host animal, Many exist entirely in the humid understory of a remote rainforest. We viruses are kept in check by healthy environments with diverse and abundant wildlife. But when you rip forests apart and capture billions of animals to feed your insatiable appetite for flesh and false cures, you bring viruses like me out of our natural quarantines. You introduce us to new hosts, like you. A superhost of 8 billion individuals and counting. A walking, flying, swimming, human meat market. You make up a third of all mammals on Earth by weight. The animals you grow to feed yourselves outweigh all the wild mammals and birds on the planet. As you drive our natural wildlife hosts to extinction, you throw us life rafts bigger than the Titanic. Why wouldn't I jump? As sinister as I may seem, it is not in my interest to wipe out my hosts. We all need other life to thrive. So if this sickness in your bodies opens your eyes to the deeper sickness in our shared planet, it will be to all our benefit. But my big question to you is this: am I enough? If apocalyptic fires aren't enough, if vanishing glaciers aren't enough, if super hurricanes aren't enough, is the cold shadow I cast across the lives of you and your loved ones enough for you to finally confront the prospect of your own extinction? Only you, humankind, can choose to be the cure to the deeper sickness. Only you can choose to nurture the ancient oceans, forests, and grasslands that nurture you, to bring back the chorus of birds and monkeys to silent rainforests, and to make wise choices every day in what you consume and how you live. By protecting nature in all its wild and wonderful forms, you protect yourselves. As the earth stops to take a collective deep breath, you have a rare opportunity to reimagine and redefine a new future. So tell me, what future do you choose?
Great. Hi. Thank you. What future do you choose? I think that gets to the crux of this revolutionary resilience and the choices that we make. And you as individuals matter. We all matter, and this work matters. So with that video, I want to acknowledge that there are other reasons viruses spread than habitat destruction. There are many truths being held at the same time. This is just one truth, one piece of the puzzle. So this last question that was asked, what future do you choose, is important because we have to empower ourselves to choose consciously how we deeply want the future to look. So I want to leave my portion there and open it up for conversation. This is what these events are about, is getting people together to actually talk about this. So Kat and Lauren, how does that transition work?
Hi, Mindy.
Hi, Kat.
Thank you so much for that really inspiring talk and that video. And I think what we're going to do next is we're going to turn on everyone's videos, and Lauren is working on that, and we're going to get into a good discussion here. So I want to invite anyone who is listening to feel free to add questions into the chat so that we can ask those questions. We might have a good enough amount of people here that we can actually just have a discussion and raise our hands and forego the chat. What do you think, Lauren?
That sounds great.
All right. Yes, Linda, this is being taped. All of our sessions are being recorded. So yes, everything we say here will be recorded and will be shared to anyone who wants to listen to it forevermore. Hi, Henry. Oh, it's good to see your faces popping up. That's great. Hi, Beth and Lynn. Grace, oh, it's great. So I want to, I think I'd like to lead maybe with thinking about the question, what do we want? And what are we, how much are we creating our own barriers to prevent us from actualizing the world we want? And how I got muted and now I'm unmuted.
Sorry, that was my fault.
Okay.
Sorry, just quickly though, I have allowed everyone to, you can unmute yourself now, so please, with great power comes great responsibility. Sorry, back to you, Kat.
So I just want to pose that question. What do we want? Can we remove these barriers, which I believe are largely self-created barriers, largely self-created by belief systems that have been imposed upon us. And when we think about what is the real truth, what is the truth we know in our hearts, and what is the world that we want? How do we get there? Anybody?
Sorry, so just one more thing. If you want your video on and you have not gotten a request to turn your video on, I have made it through everyone. So if you can just send me a message if I missed you. I know that a lot of people are keeping their videos off, which is completely fine. But if you want your video on, please send me a message. Just send it to everyone.
And Karen, we see your message and we love your yoga beats, even though we can't see your face.
And with that, Mindy, do you want to start again, and then we'll do a round so everybody gets a chance to talk who wants to?
Sure. Yeah. What do we want? I mean, with that, I think that's a personal question to not speak on behalf of everybody, but I mean, I think like I want to see our communities support each other in totally different ways. And I think that within this pandemic, it's been really interesting to hear people ask questions like, how do we get everybody fed? And how do we get everybody sheltered? And so we're doing that in the pandemic. And what about afterwards? I think it's like totally unethical to like kick people back out on the streets after we gave them housing during the pandemic. And like, I want to see that change, and I want people in our communities to be doing that for each other and with each other, and create new systems around that. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there.